Hey guys, it's Matt with Printavo, and today I'm going to talk about if it's right for you to get into embroidery. So when I'm thinking about a shop that's newer and trying to get into embroidery, I like to ask them how often are they asked for embroidery. If it's your first few times being asked for that and you're looking at, oh, should I buy equipment? I would say no. If you're already at a screen printing shop or a directed garment shop and you're starting to receive those requests, reach out to local embroidery houses and let them do what they're good at and kind of get some cross business to business work. Now, if you're starting to see that 25 to even 20% of the customers that are reaching out to you are asking for embroidery, then I would say it might be worth looking into that investment. So always comes down to a few different aspects, right? Are your customers asking for it? What kind of equipment will you need? And then how do you make that work for your business? So if you've established that your customers are asking for it and you feel it's now past the point where you don't want to outsource it anymore because you're losing too much of that revenue and you want to bring it in, then you have to figure out how to make that work in your shop. Now, there's a great world out there for used embroidery equipment, and you can find some pretty good independent techs. So to get started in a basic embroidery setup, you can usually find something set up for right around $15,000 for a nice like 10 head. And you can start off a lot easier if you'd like and go about $2,000 in, and you can get a really good 1 or 2 head and start knocking out hats, smaller patches, things like that. Now, the learning curve when it comes to embroidery is very, very different than it comes to screen printing. There's a lot of videos online for screen printing. There's quite a few on embroidery too, but it's very tactile. It's very much trial and error and learning different things, right? So when you're getting into it, you have to learn all the different lingo, the vernacular, the words, jump stitches, right? What do those things mean? How to clean up, solvay, backer. So definitely reach out to your local supplier, or if you get from a manufacturer, find out who they recommend as a authorized distributor of their equipment to reach out to them to help with that learning curve as well. So if you're finding that you're starting to have people ask for embroidery and you've decided that it's not quite right for you yet or maybe at all to get into embroidery and you want to kind of bridge that gap with the local embroiderer, what should you do? The easy answer and honest answer is just give them a call. Go stop by their shop, right? Everyone likes to have someone that has something in common. If you're already an apparel decorator, go stop by that embroidery house that's a couple blocks away. They're going to be excited to talk to you as well, especially since you're not treating them like the enemy, you're treating them like a fellow decorator. So just reaching out or even calling them and letting them know, like, hey, I've heard great things about you folks. Maybe you haven't, right? But you just know it's going to help them feel good. Hey, I've heard great things about you folks. I've got some customers that ask me for embroidery. I was wondering if I could outsource those to you, maybe at a contract cost. Now, if this was 10 years ago, they'd probably be like, nope, not going to happen. But in the current landscape, everyone's a lot better when it comes to working together. And they are happy to have work outsourced to them and vice versa. Maybe they don't actually have a great relationship with their screen printer currently, and they want to also outsource that to you. So developing these relationships, not only when you need them, but if they're in your area, reach out to them frequently anyways, just to check in on them, especially now. Ask how they're doing, if they're doing all right, and then you can do to help them. Build those relationships because those relationships will help create a web, a network, if you will, of being able to get things done for your customers. So when dealing with embroidery, we're going to be dealing with a different kind of file type. So for screen printers, we're used to a bitmap, raster, vector. For embroidery, we're going to deal with a digitized file. Now that file is going to be a vector file, but it's going to actually have little marks on where each stitch needs to happen, so where that needle is going to penetrate. That can be very hard to learn. There's a lot of great software out there and programs that do that, but it does kind of go back into how much time do you want to spend on that process versus what is that process actually generating for you. I find that most shops, even the larger ones that have great artists in-house that can actually digitize a file themselves, they're usually batch outsourcing that to people that have software and people that only do that. So it goes back to the idea of do what you're good at and outsource the rest. Now you can do it all in-house and that learning curve is going to be there, but it will make you stronger to be able to do all the processes through and through. So I like a hybrid method of learning how to do at least the basics where you can jump into the file, make those adjustments, and then get it back onto the machine, right? But then actually for the bulk work, sending that out, and there's a lot of great resources you can find on the internet that'll help you do that. A lot of times some of those ones that are spam messaging you still do a pretty good job. Be careful what money you give them, be careful what information you give them for you to make sure it's not just a spammer totally, but when in doubt, throw 15 bucks at it, give it a shot. My personal favorite that I like to use is Graphic Source. I've actually been lucky enough to go visit their facilities in Thailand, and I've seen the rows of computer with very, very talented artists working on digitization and vectorization. So using a worldwide company like that will really help streamline your process, and you can take comfort knowing that they're working with thousands of other shops to make the same files work for you. So to break down the cost a little bit, I mentioned a bit about how you can get into like a single head or a two head for a few $1,000s. You can get into a 10 head, usually starting off around $15,000. Just like everything else, it's going to depend on the manufacturer and if you're buying it new or used. I would say that if you're really looking into real production, you'd want to start off with at least an 8 or a 10 head machine. That way at once you're running 8 units or 10 units. That way you don't just set up one, wait a couple minutes, and then set up one and keep waiting. So to really get into this and be successful at it out of the gate, I would say you're looking at roughly about a $15,000 to $20,000 investment just to get you the setup, the hoops, the equipment, and everything else you'd need to hit the floor running. Space requirements for embroidery is going to be dependent on how big of a machine you get. A smaller single head or two head machine, you can get a lot done in a 10 by 10 room. But if you want to get into a 10 head or something larger than that, you're going to make sure you have to have space for that equipment. And then you want to have a staging table where you can hoop things and prep them before they're on the machine while the machine's running. But then you also want to have space for the finished goods and the unfinished goods, so you're not sitting in a tight spot, getting things out of boxes, hooping them, putting them on the machine, and then having to wait for a process before you can finish it. So make sure you allow for a large table to prep things, finish things, and pack things in your area. So in conclusion, when it comes to thinking about if embroidery is right for you, if your customer base is asking for it, you're finding that 20–25% of the people coming to you for work are asking for it, and you no longer want to outsource that. Now is probably the time to start looking at that embroidery machine. So look at the used network, look at the new network, figure out what equipment's right for you in your area, and then be ready to spend anywhere from a couple thousand to $20,000 plus to make it work in your shop.